Joining me now, Guy Benson, political editor of Townhall.com, and John Hilsenrath, chief economics correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to you both. I'm going to start with John here. You know, this plan, John, is being sold as tax simplification, but it really creates a new set of winners and losers. What do you make of the plan?
Well, you know, on one level, it's what a lot of economists have argued for many years, that the tax code needs to be simplified, and more importantly, that we need to have an economy that's more focused on investment and less and saving and less focused on consumption. This 999 plan does that, but as you noted, there are a lot of complications. You know, a 9% sales tax is a very large increase in consumption taxes. How you implement it is a very hard thing to do. And then, of course, there's always a question of who's going to come along and change it down the road.
Well, I got to tell you, I look at this thing, I don't see tax simplification at all. It's phased in 3 different times, 3 different systems put in place. And what you're really doing is peeling back capital gains, which generates about $100 billion each and every year. And then you're putting in place this consumption tax. A lot of people are going to call it regressive. It's going to be highly controversial. Guy, to you, what kind of reception do you think this would get on Capitol Hill?
On Capitol Hill, I don't think it would go anywhere. Now, Herman Cain's not selling it that way. He's saying he's going to rally the American people to his side, and that popular support is what would jam it through, ram it through, and get it done, and keep it there. Now, during the debate last night in New Hampshire, he made a few assertions that I think merit a little bit more scrutiny. I will say this in defense of the 999 plan real quick. I think a lot of people see the current tax code as a huge problem. It's just a labyrinth of loopholes and carve-outs and corporate welfare that's so costly to comply with, we want to completely blow it up and start from scratch. 999 does that in its defense. Whether or not it does it in a smart way and really a realistic way, I think is something that we will continue to debate.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it really rewards savings and investment. That's what really gets the big bang for its buck there. But I think you guys should listen to what was said at last night's debate, the Republican debate, because, whoo, he took some heat over this. Listen to this.
One thing I would say is when you take the 999 plan and you turn it upside down, I think the devil's in the details.
I think it's a catchy phrase. In fact, I thought it was the price of a pizza when I first heard about it.
I also have a number of other well-recognized economists that helped me to develop this 999 plan. It didn't come off a pizza box, no.
How many people here are for a sales tax in New Hampshire? Raise your hand. There you go, Herman. That's how many votes you'll get in New Hampshire.
Well, John, I mean, that's the very point, is that, I mean, people hate sales taxes. And, of course, in Europe, there's a massive VAT tax that runs anywhere from 15% to 25%. Do you think that's where we're headed?
Well, you know, I mean, a couple points. One thing that we should acknowledge in this discussion is it also reduces income tax rates quite substantially, so it rewards work and incomes, and it reduces corporate taxes, which could give companies an incentive to go out and hire more people. So in that respect, you know, you've got to give him credit for that. But as you say, there's the sales tax, which is going to be very, very hard for him. I think, you know, one thing that could come of this, while this individual plan could be very difficult to galvanize support around, it does get to this idea that the American public is looking for some kind of simplification or reform of the tax code. And frankly, the tax code has to be reformed as part of the broader deficit reduction
I still say this isn't
that
simplification, because it breaks down 3 different ways. It's really pretty complicated. It sounds easy, but it's not. Well, Guy, let me ask you this.
It depends on what kind of exemptions get thrown in there. You know, today he was talking about throwing in exemptions of, you know, of used goods and used cars, which, you know, so like you say, the devil's in the details.
That wasn't me. That was Michelle Bachmann. All right, Guy, jump in here, because I think the political response to this is going to be so interesting, because people have been pounding the table for decades. Tax simplification, change the tax code. It's too complicated, too burdensome. Now they've got their chance, and they've got a great salesman for it. You know, Herman Cain is a fantastic salesperson for this.
Oh, absolutely. He's incredibly likable. He's so dynamic. He lights up every room he walks into. So there's a lot to like about Herman Cain, but we have to separate the man from the policy. So when you criticize 999 or at least question it, you know, you have to, it's not an attack on Herman Cain. It's talking about the actual plan itself. And again, if we talk about the corporate tax involved, I was reading Josh Barrow today, a respected economist at National Review. He was writing about how the corporate tax in this, the reduction here is actually structured more like a VAT tax, which is anathema to a lot of conservatives. So Michelle Bachmann's term, the devil is in the details, I think probably applies here in a pretty major way. And look, Herman Cain is now a first-tier candidate. This is great.
That's
He's
right.
been surging.
And
That's
let me
going to be
just say
exciting
this about that. You know, if Herman Cain wants to come on and talk to us about his tax, come on, Herman Cain. We'd love to have you on to explain it to us in detail. Tell us if this will actually create enough revenue to replace the revenue of the existing tax code as it is right now. We're dying to get all the details. You know, last night in the debate, it was suggested that this wouldn't replace income. It would fall short, but we don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. John, I'm going to get you to respond to the Bernanke bashing going on last night at the debate. Let's listen in.
If they want to really change things, the first person to fire is Bernanke, who is a disaster as chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Bernanke compounds the problem. He's inflating twice as fast as Greenspan was.
I don't agree with the actions of this Federal Reserve. I don't agree with the actions that have been undertaken by Ben Bernanke.
All right. How do you respond to that, John? You know these people very, very well.
A couple of things. One is Gingrich's comments are kind of amusing because, you know, it suggests he doesn't know how the law works. So he says he wants to fire Ben Bernanke. The Fed is an independent institution. He can't fire Ben Bernanke. You know, frankly, I think that, you know, all these guys say they want to get rid of Bernanke. They're probably not going to have him to kick around for very long anyway. His term ends in 2014. I highly doubt he would want a third term after the 8 years that he's been through running the institution. So no matter what, I think Bernanke's going to be gone. And if there's a Republican president, they'll have a chance to pick someone else to replace him. But they're not going to fire him. If he wants to go, you know, he can go on his own.
And the beat goes on, you know. Well, they love kicking around the Federal Reserve, and I think it's just an easy target.
It's kind of like attacking China. It's kind of like attacking China these days. You know, it's an easy target, but, you know, we'll see if anybody follows through on it.
All right, we got to leave it there. John and Guy, come back. Love talking to you. Great conversation.